The observation deck hadn't seen a living soul in 20 years. Dust covered the old viewing windows, and the air recyclers barely worked anymore. Station Kepler 9 was one of those forgotten outposts on the edge of human space, the kind of place where families came to work salvage jobs and everyone knew everyone else's business. Most of the station was fine, but this wing? People stayed away. There were stories, the kind whispered between dock workers during shift changes. Something lived in the dark corners. Something that wasn't human. Tommy Wright was 10 years old and absolutely convinced that monsters weren't real. His mom, Rebecca, worked 16-hour shifts in the engineering bay, fixing the endless problems that came with maintaining an old station held together by duct tape and hope. When she worked late, Tommy was supposed to stay in their quarters and do his homework. He never did. The kid had explored every accessible corridor on Kepler 9 by the time he was 8. Now he was hunting for the places nobody wanted him to see. The forbidden wing called to him. All the adults acted weird about it, changing the subject when kids asked questions. That just made Tommy more curious. He'd borrowed his mom's old access card 3 weeks ago, she hadn't noticed it was missing, and tonight he finally worked up the courage to use it. The door hissed open reluctantly, like it had forgotten how. The air smelled stale and old, like nobody had breathed it in forever. Tommy's flashlight cut through the darkness as he walked deeper into the abandoned section. His heart hammered, but he kept going. Fear was just your brain being stupid, his dad used to say before the accident. You had to be smart and careful, not scared. The corridor opened into what must have been an observation deck once, back when the station was new and people actually cared about looking at stars. Now the windows were grimy, but enough light filtered through that Tommy could see the massive shape curled in the center of the room. His first thought was that someone had left a shuttle in here. But shuttles didn't have scales. They didn't breathe with slow, rattling sounds that echoed off the walls. Tommy's flashlight beam traveled up and up, revealing something impossible. The creature was easily the size of a cargo hauler, covered in plates that might have been shiny once but now looked like dull stone. Wings, actual wings, lay folded against its sides, torn and ragged. A long neck curved around, and at the end was a head that belonged in storybooks, not on a functioning space station. A dragon. A real, honest-to-God dragon. Tommy should have run. Any sensible kid would have. But Tommy had never been particularly sensible, and something about the creature stopped him cold. It wasn't moving much, just breathing. And the breathing sounded wrong, labored and painful. The dragon wasn't scary. It was sad. It looked like how Tommy felt after his dad died, alone and too tired to care anymore. He walked closer, his footsteps echoing. One massive eye opened, glowing faintly in the darkness. It was amber-colored, old and weary, and it focused on the small human boy with something like surprise. They stared at each other for a long moment. Tommy had brought his dinner with him, a sandwich and some chips his mom had packed. He sat down on the floor about 10 feet from the dragon's head, cross-legged like he was at story time in school. "You look hungry, mister," Tommy said, pulling out half his sandwich. "Do dragons eat turkey?" The eye blinked slowly. Then, for the first time in decades, Drathik spoke. His voice was like rocks grinding together, rusty from disuse, but the words were clear enough. "Dragons eat many things, small human. But not for a long time now." Tommy wasn't even surprised the dragon could talk. Of course it could. Everything about this was already impossible. Why not? "Are you sick?" "I am dying," Drathik said simply. "It is my time. I am the last, and it is fitting that I should end here, alone." "That's stupid," Tommy said, with the blunt honesty only kids can manage. "Nobody should die alone. That's the saddest thing ever." He scooted closer, holding out the sandwich. "Here. Even if you're dying, you should eat something. Mom always says you feel better with food in your stomach." Drathik stared at this fearless child who approached death itself with a sandwich and concern. Something shifted in his ancient chest. A feeling he'd thought dead stirred back to life, not hope exactly, but something close. Curiosity maybe. Wonder that anything in this cold galaxy could still surprise him. The dragon lowered his great head, and with surprising delicacy, took the offered sandwich in teeth that could have bitten through steel. Tommy grinned. "See? Better already. I'm Tommy, by the way. What's your name?" "Drathik," the dragon replied, and his voice sounded a little stronger. "Bearer of the third sun warden of the Void Gates. Last of the Varathians." "Cool name," Tommy said. "Way better than Tommy Wright." "That's boring." He pulled out his chips and started eating, completely comfortable sitting next to a creature from myth. "So what's a Void Gate? And why are you the last?" Where did all the other dragons go? And because he had nothing left to lose, because this strange human child had shown him more kindness in 5 minutes than the galaxy had in a century, Drathic began to tell his story. Tommy came back the next night, and the night after that. His mom thought he was making friends with some of the other station kids, which wasn't exactly a lie. He was making a friend. Just not the kind she'd expect. Each time, he brought food, sometimes his own dinner, sometimes extra stuff he'd swiped from the cafeteria. Drathic never asked for it, but he always ate what Tommy offered, and the boys swore the dragon's scales looked a little less grey each time. On the 4th night, Tommy settled into his usual spot on the floor and pulled out a thermos of soup. Okay, so you said your people were guardians. Guardians of what exactly? And don't give me the mysterious old guy answer. I'm 10, not stupid. Drathic's chest rumbled with something that might have been a laugh. Very well, young Tommy. I shall tell you what your people have forgotten, what most species chose to ignore. The dragon shifted, his massive form moving with visible effort. Long before humans left their homeworld, before most civilizations reached for the stars, there were things in the dark spaces between galaxies. Old things. Hungry things. They existed before matter learned it to be solid, before energy learned to shine. We called them the Void Dwellers. Tommy leaned forward, eyes wide. This was better than any story his dad used to tell. Like monsters? Worse than monsters. Monsters can be fought, killed, understood. These things simply consume. They eat reality itself, leaving nothing behind. Not death, actual nothing. A hole where existence used to be. Drathic's amber eyes glowed brighter as he spoke. My people, the Varathians, were born in the fires of dying stars. We could survive in space, cross between worlds on our wings, and we could see these creatures when they pressed against the barriers of normal space. So we made ourselves guardians. Just you guys? Nobody else helped? Tommy asked, offering the dragon some soup. Drathic dipped his snout into the thermos carefully, and Tommy noticed his movements were smoother than before. Whatever was killing the dragon was happening slower now. At first, others helped. There were alliances, great gatherings of species who built the void gates together. Think of them as walls, young one, or perhaps locks on doors you never want opened. They kept the hungry dark out there, away from the galaxy where life could grow. Drathic's voice grew softer, sadder. But that was thousands of years ago. The younger species, yours included, grew powerful. You built ships that could tear holes in space. Weapons that could crack planets. You learned to defend yourselves, or so you thought. Tommy frowned. So you weren't needed anymore. That is what they believed. The great councils met and declared the Age of Guardians over. The void gates were called myths, stories to scare children. My people were told our services were no longer required. The dragon's wings rustled, a sound like old leather cracking. Some of my kind grew angry. They fought, tried to prove they were still necessary. Those battles did not end well. Dragons are powerful, but a unified fleet of modern warships? We could not win. That's messed up, Tommy said hotly. You were protecting everyone and they just threw you away. Not all at once. It was gradual, like a slow poison. First, they stopped calling us to council meetings. Then they stopped maintaining the old warning systems. The gates still stood, but nobody watched them anymore. And my people, Drathic paused, and Tommy could see pain in those ancient eyes. We were too proud. Too set in our ways. We could have adapted, learned to work with the new civilizations. Shared our knowledge instead of guarding it like treasure. But we had been warriors and watchers for so long, we did not know how to be anything else. What happened to them all? Tommy asked quietly. Some flew into stars, choosing to end their lives in fire as we began them. Others simply stopped eating, stopped caring, faded away in forgotten places. A few tried to find new purposes, but without the duty that defined us, they were lost. Dragons were bred for a single great purpose, you see. When that purpose was taken away, most of my kind could not find a reason to continue. Drathic's gaze drifted to the grimy windows and the stars beyond. I watched them go, one by one. My clutch sister, Verith, was the second to last. She flew into a black hole singing the old songs. I was always the stubborn one, she said. Too stubborn to let go even when I should. So why did you stay? Tommy demanded. If everyone said you weren't needed, if all the other dragons gave up, why are you still here? Drathic turned his full attention to the boy, and for a moment Tommy saw the warrior the dragon must have been centuries ago. Because I could still hear them, Tommy. Faint whispers at the edge of perception. The things beyond the gates, testing the barriers. Growing stronger. More bold. The galaxy may have forgotten the danger, but the danger has not forgotten the galaxy. I stayed because someone had to watch. Even if no one believed me. Even if I died alone doing it. Tommy felt cold despite the warmth of the observation deck. They're coming back, aren't they? The void things. They never left. They have been patient, waiting for the watchers to die, for the gates to weaken. Drathic lowered his head until he was eye level with Tommy. And now I am failing. The last watcher, too weak to sound the alarm, too tired to stand guard much longer. I came here to die before the breach, so I would not have to witness everything my people fought for being undone. Tommy stood up abruptly, his hands balled into fists. That's a really terrible plan, Drathic. Like, the worst plan ever. The dragon blinked in surprise. What would you have me do, small one? I am alone. Dying. No one will believe the warnings of the last dragon. Then we make them believe, Tommy said with the fierce certainty only a 10-year-old could muster. And you're not alone anymore. You've got me. Tommy started noticing things after that conversation. Little things at first, easy to dismiss. The lights in the corridor outside his quarters flickered at exactly midnight for 3 nights straight. His mom's tablet reset itself twice in one day, losing hours of work. People in the cafeteria looked tired, dark circles under their eyes, muttering about nightmares they couldn't quite remember when they woke up. On the 5th night, Tommy brought his observations to Drathic along with a stolen chocolate bar and some beef jerky. It's starting, isn't it? The thing you were worried about. The dragon's eyes glowed brighter than Tommy had seen before, alarm clear in their depths. Tell me everything, young one. Every detail, no matter how small. Tommy listed it all. The electrical problems spreading through the station. The way his teacher, Mr. Peterson, had stopped mid-sentence during class, staring at nothing for a full minute before snapping back. How the stars outside the viewport sometimes seemed to bend wrong, like looking through water. And the dreams. Tommy hadn't mentioned his own nightmares, but now he did. Dreams of darkness that wasn't just black but empty, hungry, reaching for him with fingers made of nothing. Drathic listened to it all, and with each detail his scales seemed to dim. They are testing the barriers. Probing for weaknesses. The gate near this station was always one of the smaller ones, which is why I chose it. I thought I could maintain it alone. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I was wrong. It weakens faster than I anticipated. We need to tell someone, Tommy said firmly. My mom, or Captain Hayes, or... They will not believe you, Drathic interrupted gently. I am a myth that happens to be real, and you are a child. They will think you have an overactive imagination. Then you tell them. You're huge and you can talk and you're literally a dragon. They'll have to listen. But Drathic shook his great head. I am a dying relic of a forgotten age. They will see me as a curiosity at best, a threat at worst. By the time they understand the danger, it will be too late. The dragon's breathing grew labored. I am sorry, Tommy. I should have died before this began. Now you will see what my people feared most, the end of everything, and no one standing guard to stop it. Tommy felt frustration building in his chest. You keep talking like you're already dead. You're not dead, you're right here, and I'm not letting you give up. His voice cracked a little. My dad gave up. After he got sick, he just stopped fighting. Mom said he was tired, that it was okay, but I never got to say goodbye properly because he'd already quit before he was actually gone. You don't get to do that too. The observation deck fell silent. Drathic looked at this small human child who carried his own grief like a weight but refused to let it crush him. Your father was fortunate to have such a fierce son. Yeah, well, you're stuck with me too now, Tommy said, wiping his eyes roughly. So we're going to figure this out. You said humans got powerful, right? That we built crazy weapons and ships? So we're not helpless. We just need to make people understand. Over the next 2 days, Tommy became a spy. He borrowed his mom's datapad when she was sleeping and started documenting everything weird happening on the station. He took pictures of the flickering lights, recorded video of the strange way shadows moved in empty corridors, noted down every complaint he overheard about nightmares and equipment failures. He even convinced his friend Billy from school to help, telling him they were doing a project on station malfunctions. Billy thought it was boring but went along with it. The evidence was piling up, but Tommy knew it wasn't enough. Then things got worse. Life support in Section C failed for 20 minutes, no explanation. The backup systems kicked in, but Chief Engineer Morrison found nothing wrong with the primary systems. They had just stopped working. 3 people were hospitalized with severe anxiety attacks, all reporting the same thing, feeling like something was watching them from a place that didn't exist. Captain Hayes called a station-wide meeting. Tommy dragged his mom to it, clutching his datapad with all his evidence. The captain was a stern woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back tight, and she didn't look like she appreciated public panic. Folks, we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Old station, old systems. Engineering is working overtime to patch everything. The medical team assures me the anxiety cases are stress-related. Everyone needs to stay calm and stay on schedule. Tommy's hand shot up. His mom tried to pull it down, but he was already talking. Captain Hayes, it's not technical difficulties. There's a pattern. All the malfunctions started 12 days ago and they're getting worse. And the nightmares, everyone's having them at the same time, between midnight and 3 a.m. That's not stress, that's something else. The room went quiet. People stared at him. Captain Hayes looked annoyed. Son, I appreciate your concern, but there's a dragon in the abandoned observation deck and he says something's trying to break through from outside our dimension. Tommy blurted out. I know it sounds crazy, but it's real. I've been talking to him for over a week and he's been guarding us for 300 years and now he's dying and nobody's watching the gate anymore and that's enough. Captain Hayes' voice was sharp. Rebecca, get your son under control. We don't need mass hysteria based on a child's imagination. But Tommy's mom wasn't looking at the captain. She was looking at her datapad, at the evidence Tommy had compiled, and her face had gone pale. Rebecca Wright had been an engineer for 23 years. She knew systems, knew patterns, and what she was seeing wasn't random. There was a progression to the failures, almost like something was learning the station's weaknesses. Jack Morrison stood up from the back of the room. The old engineer had scars across his face from the Frontier Wars, and people respected him. Captain, with respect, maybe we should check the boy's story. I served on the Outer Rim for 15 years. I've seen things that shouldn't exist. And our equipment failures don't make sense. Nothing's actually broken, it just stops working, then starts again. You're suggesting we investigate fairy tales? Captain Hayes said icily. I'm suggesting we investigate an unexplained phenomenon before it kills someone, Jack shot back. What's it hurt to look? Tommy felt hope surge in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, the adults would listen before it was too late. But even as the meeting dissolved into arguments, Tommy could feel it. That same presence from his nightmares, pressing closer. Drathik was right about one thing. Time was running out. Rebecca Wright followed her son through the forbidden corridors, Jack Morrison right behind them. Captain Hayes had refused to come, calling the whole thing a waste of time, but she'd given them 1 hour to prove Tommy's wild claims. Rebecca's heart hammered as Tommy used her stolen access card. When had he taken that? And the old door groaned open. The observation deck smelled like ozone and something ancient. Rebecca's flashlight beam swept across the room and landed on scales, then more scales, then kept going up until she was staring at a head the size of a cargo container. Her engineer's brain tried to categorize what she was seeing, alien life form, unknown species, possible hallucination, but kept coming back to the same impossible conclusion. Dragon. Her son had been visiting a dragon. Holy hell, Jack breathed beside her. Kid wasn't lying. Drathik's eyes opened, focusing on the 2 adult humans. His voice rumbled through the space like distant thunder. So the young one has brought witnesses. Rebecca Wright and Jack Morrison, I presume. Your son speaks of you often. Rebecca found her voice, though it came out higher than normal. You're real. You're actually real. Disappointingly so, Drathik replied with what might have been dry humor. I had hoped to fade into myth entirely, but your son is remarkably stubborn about keeping me alive. Mom, we don't have time for shock, Tommy said urgently. Show them, Drathik. Show them what's happening. The dragon pulled himself up with visible effort, wings unfurling partially. He moved to the largest viewport and touched it with one massive claw. The glass responded, which should have been impossible, it was just a window. But light began to flow across its surface, forming patterns that hurt to look at directly. This is what I see when I look beyond your visible spectrum. The barriers between dimensions. What you call the void gate. Rebecca stepped closer despite her fear. Her engineering mind kicked in, analyzing what she was seeing. The patterns looked almost like code, or mathematical formulas written in light. And there were breaks in them, gaps that pulsed with darkness. Those holes, that's where your barriers are failing. Yes. They grow larger each day. When they connect, when enough gaps form a complete breach, the things on the other side will pour through. Drathic's claw traced one of the dark spots. This station will be consumed first. Then this sector. Then, if unchecked, everything. Jack had been silent, but now he spoke. During the Frontier Wars, we encountered something once. Only once. Fourth Fleet vanished in 18 minutes. No wreckage, no bodies, no debris. Just gone. High Command classified it and we never talked about it. But the sensor readings before we lost contact, he looked at Drathic. They looked like that. Like holes in space. Your military encountered the edge of a minor breach, Drathic confirmed. It sealed itself before full manifestation. You were fortunate. Can you stop it? Rebecca asked directly. Can you seal these gaps? Once, yes. In my prime, maintaining this gate was simple. Now? Drathic's scales dimmed. I can perhaps delay the inevitable. Buy you hours to evacuate the station before the end comes. That's not good enough. Tommy protested. There has to be a way to actually fix it. Rebecca was staring at the patterns on the glass, her mind racing. It's energy manipulation. That's what you're doing, right? Channeling energy to reinforce the dimensional barriers. She turned to Jack. The station's reactor puts out massive power. We only use a fraction of it. What if we could redirect that power somehow? Redirect it where? Jack asked. Would need something to focus it, to shape it properly. Him. Rebecca pointed at Drathic. He knows how to work the gates. He's been doing it for centuries. We provide the power source, he provides the knowledge and the directing force. Drathic's eyes widened. That is, no Varathian has ever bonded with technology in such a way. Our power comes from within, from our own life force. Yeah, and you're dying because you've been burning your own life for 300 years, Tommy said. This way you don't have to. You use the station's power instead of your own. The principle is sound, Jack said slowly, his tactical mind working through the problem. But would need an interface. Something to connect biological systems to our technology. We don't have equipment for that. We do, actually. Rebecca's voice was quiet. The medical bay has neural interface equipment for brain injury patients. It's designed to connect human nervous systems to computers for therapy. If we modified it, expanded it. You're talking about cybernetic integration with an alien species we know nothing about, Jack said. That could kill him. I am already dying, Drathic pointed out. But more than that, my people would consider this heresy. Varathians bond with nothing but fire and void. To merge with machinery, to accept help from a younger species, he paused, looking at Tommy. But perhaps that pride is exactly why my people are gone and the gates are failing. Tommy moved to stand beside the dragon's massive head. You said the Varathians were too stubborn to change. That you kept your knowledge secret instead of sharing it. Maybe that was the mistake. Maybe Guardians aren't supposed to work alone. Something shifted in Drathic's ancient eyes. A decision made, a line crossed that could never be uncrossed. Very well. I will trust your species as you have trusted me. But know this, if we fail, if the modifications kill me or the power transfer doesn't work, the breach will come faster. We will have hastened the end. Then we don't fail, Rebecca said with steel in her voice. She pulled out her comm unit. Jack, I need you to get every engineer on this station to the medical bay. Tell them it's code black. Tommy, you're going to tell Drathic everything you know about how our technology works. Use simple terms. And someone get Captain Hayes down here right now. She won't believe, Tommy started. She'll believe when she sees a dragon, Rebecca cut him off. And she'll help because I'm about to tell her that we're either going to do something impossible or watch everyone on this station die. Those are the only two options. The next 6 hours were chaos. Captain Hayes did come, did see Drathic, and did turn pale as a sheet. But she was a good officer, and she knew when to trust her people. She gave them full access to station resources. The engineering crew descended on the medical bay, tearing apart neural interfaces and rebuilding them into something that had never existed before. Rebecca led the modifications, working from a combination of human medical knowledge and what Drathic could explain about Varathian physiology. Tommy stayed with Drathic, translating between the dragon's ancient understanding and modern engineering terms. Okay, so when you manipulate the gate, you're basically using your own bioelectric field as a conductor. We have electricity too, just external. So if we can channel the reactor's output through you. I become a living transformer, Drathic said, understanding dawning. Using your species' power to amplify what I can do. Exactly. Tommy grinned. See? Humans and dragons, we work pretty well together. Jack Morrison approached them, carrying a framework of cables and neural sensors that looked like something from a mad scientist's lab. This is insane. Completely insane. And it just might work. The breach came at dawn station time, when most people were just waking up. Tommy felt it first, a wrongness that made his stomach turn. He was sitting beside Drathic in the observation deck, now transformed into something between a command center and a medical lab. Cables ran from the dragon's body to interface stations, connecting him to the station's reactor through Rebecca's improvised neural bridge. The setup looked like madness, but it had been holding for 12 hours. Then the alarms started screaming. Here they come, Drathic said, his voice steady despite the pain Tommy could see in his eyes. The neural interface hurt, they'd known it would. You couldn't connect alien biology to human technology without consequences. But the dragon hadn't complained once. On the main viewport, the darkness began to tear. Not like fabric ripping, but like reality itself was being erased. Through the holes came things that Tommy's brain couldn't quite process. They had shapes, then didn't, then had different shapes. They were black but also every color at once, and looking at them too long made his eyes water and his head hurt. Void dwellers, Drathic breathed. Smaller ones, scouts. But more will follow. Captain Hayes's voice crackled through the comm system. All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. We have a hostile dimensional breach in progress. She'd stopped questioning the impossible about 6 hours ago. Engineering, how's our power? Reactor at 120%, Rebecca responded from her station below. Redirecting all non-essential systems to the neural bridge. Drathic, you're about to get a surge. The dragon's scales began to glow, first dull red, then orange, then blazing white. Energy coursed through the cables, into his body, and out through his extended claws. The patterns on the viewport blazed to life, the mathematical formulas of the void gate responding to his will. Where the darkness had been eating reality, light pushed back. But it wasn't enough. More tiers opened, and larger creatures began to push through. These ones had too many limbs, or maybe no limbs, and they moved in ways that defied physics. One touched a piece of floating debris from the station's exterior. The metal didn't explode or burn, it just stopped being. One moment it existed, the next there was nothing where it had been, not even empty space. We need more power. Drathic roared, his voice strained. The main breach is opening. I can seal the smaller tiers, but... Reactors maxed out, Rebecca shouted back. We give you more, we risk a meltdown. Tommy looked around desperately. The observation deck, the whole station, everyone was counting on this working. His mom, Jack, Captain Hayes, Billy from school, Mr. Peterson, all 417 people who called Kepler-9 home. And beyond them, the whole sector, maybe the whole galaxy if Drathic was right about how fast these things could spread. Then Tommy saw it. The old solar array controls, covered in dust in the corner of the observation deck. Kepler-9 had backup solar collectors that barely anyone used because the reactor was more efficient. But they were still there, still connected to the grid. Jack. Tommy yelled into his comm the solar arrays. Can you activate them remotely? They're ancient, kid. Might not even work anymore. Try anyway. We need every bit of power we can get. Jack Morrison had survived 3 wars by trusting his instincts, and his instincts said to listen to the 10-year-old who'd been right about everything so far. His fingers flew across his control panel. Activating backup solar collection systems. Come on, you old piece of junk, work for me. Throughout the station, panels that hadn't moved in 15 years grown to life, turning to catch the light of the nearby star. Power readings jumped. Not a lot, maybe 5% increase, but enough. Drathic felt the surge and channeled it immediately. His whole body became incandescent, scales shining like a star. The patterns on the viewport exploded outward, and the tiers in reality began to close. The void dwellers pressed harder, sensing their opportunity slipping away. One of the larger ones made it fully through before its gateway sealed, and it turned its horrible not quite attention toward the station. We've got a breach inside the perimeter, Captain Hayes announced. All security to Section F. But human weapons were designed for physical targets. Bullets passed through the thing like it wasn't there, because in a way, it wasn't, not completely. It drifted through the corridor, and everywhere it touched, existence stopped. Wall panels vanished. Flooring disappeared. A coffee cup someone had left behind ceased to be. Tommy watched through the security feeds in horror. Drathic, there's one inside the station. I cannot leave the gate, the dragon responded, his voice tight with effort. If I stop channeling now, the main breach will open fully. Dozens more will come through. Rebecca's mind raced. The thing was made of void, of nothing. What did you fight nothing with? Then it hit her. Jack. The cargo bay in Section D, we've got high-intensity work lights there, right? The ones for repairs. Yeah, why? Oh. Jack understood immediately. Light. We fight nothing with something. Get those lights to Section F, now. The station crew mobilized. Dock workers grabbed the massive floodlights used for exterior repairs, hauling them through corridors on emergency carts. They set them up in a ring around the Void Dweller, which had paused in the middle of Section F, seeming confused by the solid matter around it. On 3, Jack commanded. 1, 2, 3. 20 floodlights blazed to life at once, pumping out enough lumens to simulate daylight. The Void Dweller recoiled, or did something that looked like recoiling. Where the light touched it, the thing's form became less stable, flickering. It tried to move toward the shadows, but the crew adjusted their lights, keeping it boxed in. It's working, someone shouted. Keep those lights on it. Meanwhile, Drathic continued his battle with the main breach. Sweat, could dragon's sweat, dripped from his scales, and Tommy could see the dragon's strength fading. The neural interface was burning him out from the inside. They were asking too much of him, even with the station's power helping. We need to end this soon, Rebecca said quietly to Captain Hayes. He can't hold much longer. But Drathic had heard her. Just a few more minutes, he gasped. The breach is almost sealed. The gate's patterns are restabilizing. I just need. His voice cut off as his body convulsed. Warning lights flashed across Rebecca's monitors. Neural feedback. The interface is overloading. Tommy didn't think, just acted. He ran to Drathic and placed both hands on the dragon's scales, right where the neural cables connected. He could feel the energy coursing through the dragon, wild and painful, and somehow his touch seemed to help. Maybe it was just comfort, just knowing he wasn't alone, but Drathic's breathing steadied. Together, Tommy said firmly. You're not doing this alone, remember? And maybe it was just a kid's imagination, or maybe something about human contact helped ground the energy flow, but the overload warning stopped. Drathic's eyes opened, blazing with renewed determination. With one final surge of power, he sealed the last major tear. The smaller breaches collapsed in sequence like dominoes falling. In Section F, the trapped Void Dweller flickered one more time and then simply wasn't there anymore, pulled back to whatever impossible place it had come from. The observation deck fell silent except for the hum of machinery. On the viewport, the Void Gate's patterns glowed steady and whole. The breach was sealed. Then Drathic collapsed. Mom? Tommy screamed as the dragon's massive form crashed to the deck. The neural interface cable sparked and died. Rebecca was already running, her medical team right behind her. His heart's failing, one of the medics announced, scanner in hand. The strain was too much. I don't even know if our equipment works on him. Then we figure it out, Rebecca said flatly. He saved all of us. We're saving him. What followed was the most desperate medical procedure in human history. Rebecca's team worked with equipment designed for humans on a body that shouldn't exist. They adapted cardiac stimulators, used defibrillators meant for people on a heart the size of a shuttle engine. Tommy held Drathic's head, talking to him, refusing to let him slip away. You don't get to die now, Tommy said fiercely, tears running down his face. We won, Drathic. We beat them together. You and me and my mom and Jack and everyone. That's how it's supposed to work. So you stay with us, okay? You stay. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then Drathic's chest rose with a shuddering breath. His eyes flickered open. Stubborn, child, he whispered. You are, as bad as I am. Worse, Tommy said, laughing and crying at once. Way worse. Recovery took weeks. The neural interface had damaged Drathic in ways that wouldn't fully heal. Rebecca's solution was radical, permanent cybernetic integration. They couldn't remove the technology without killing him, so instead they refined it, made it part of him. Drathic's scales grew back around the interface points, but they were different now. Streaked with silver where the technology merged with his body, glowing faintly with stored energy. He wasn't just a dragon anymore. He was something new. Something the galaxy had never seen, a fusion of ancient guardian and modern innovation. And when he recovered enough to teach, to share the knowledge of the void gates with human scientists, Captain Hayes made it official. Kepler 9 became the first warden station, with both human and dragon protecting it together. Other stations heard the story. Some laughed it off as frontier myth. But a few reached out, curious. And when Drathic taught Tommy and a dozen other volunteers how to sense the gates, how to read the warnings, those volunteers went to other stations, other worlds, spreading the knowledge dragons had hoarded for millennia. My people died because we stood alone, Drathic told Tommy one night, both of them watching the stars from the observation deck. His scales gleamed silver and copper now, healthy and strong. We thought strength meant needing no one. Your people taught me the truth. Strength is knowing when to ask for help, when to share your burden, when to stand together instead of apart. Tommy leaned against the dragon's side, comfortable and warm. So what now? You're not the last dragon anymore. You're the first of something else. Yes, Drathic agreed. The first warden who does not stand guard alone. And perhaps that is better than being the last dragon who did. Somewhere in the dark between galaxies, the void dwellers pressed against their barriers and found them stronger than before. Not because of dragon fire alone, but because of human ingenuity, stubbornness, and the simple refusal to let anyone face the darkness alone. The galaxy had new guardians now. And they stood together.